Hey guys, I'm back in Titanic VR, and today I'll be looking at Rec Tool. Short or long? I'll go short, I guess.
Welcome to the Titanic VR guided tour. We are currently 3.8 kilometres below the surface of the North Atlantic and 100 metres east of the bow. This submersible is on autopilot. However, you can adjust your spotlight using the far left lever. Please keep your arms and legs inside the vehicle at all times. I'll provide you with information about locations as we pass them, so please sit back, relax and enjoy the ride.
Look, I'll stick my arms and legs outside of this.
The RMS Titanic was the second White Star Line Olympic-class ocean liner, the first being RMS Olympic and the third being HMHS Britannic. She was 269 metres long, 28 metres wide and 72 metres tall from the bottom of her keel to the top of her masts. At 46,328 tonnes, she was the largest ship built at the time, being only slightly bigger than Olympic. She would be servicing the transatlantic route, the journey from Southampton, England to New York, USA. She stops at Cherbourg, France and Queenstown, Ireland. After departing Queenstown on the afternoon of Thursday, the 11th of April, RMS Titanic began her 5,360-kilometre journey to New York City. She was due to arrive in the early hours of Wednesday, the 17th of April, but with calm ocean conditions and good weather, it was possible she could arrive early on Tuesday evening instead.
What? What is happening? Just making sure that
the night of the 14th of April was moonless, and a light fog was developing on the horizon. Titanic's captain, Edward Smith, had received a number of ice warnings during the day, and had changed their course so they were further south to avoid the affected areas. The captain retired to bed, and First Officer William Murdoch took charge of the bridge as officer of the watch. Titanic steamed ahead until 11:40 p.m, when the lookouts Frederick Fleet and Reginald Lee spotted an iceberg directly ahead. Fleet rang the warning bell 3 times to indicate an obstacle ahead, and phoned the bridge. Murdoch gave the order, hard a starboard, and the ship turned to port, but it was too late. Titanic struck the iceberg on her starboard side. The impact buckled hull plates and sheared rivets, revealing her first 6 compartments to the ocean. As the iceberg slid down the side of the ship, Murdoch ordered a hard a port, swinging a Titanic stern out of the path of the iceberg. He also closed the watertight doors, isolating the flooding to those damaged compartments. The forward 3 hatches, along with the peak tank and boiler rooms 5 and 6, were breached. After the collision, RMS Titanic stopped and almost immediately took a starboard list. The captain organised a group to inspect the damage and ordered the carpenter John Maxwell to sound the ship. Chief designer Thomas Andrews knew the volume of each breached compartment and calculated that the initial flooding rate was around 15,000 tonnes within the first 40 minutes. With this information, he estimated Titanic would sink within 90 minutes. He then informed the captain, who then ordered the officers to begin preparing the lifeboats. All free seamen were sent up to the boat deck to begin pulling the covers off the lifeboats and to collect lanterns, blankets, food and water for the passengers. Passengers were woken by their stewards and told to put on their lifebelts and head up to the boat deck.
See, this is what you really look like under the sea right now in real life. It's the
Titanic carried just 20 lifeboats, 4 more than required by the regulations outlined by the British Board of Trade. There were 14 regular wooden lifeboats, 2 smaller cutters and 4 Engelhart collapsible boats. The total capacity of these lifeboats was only 1,178 people, far less than the total on board. This fact must have weighed heavily on the captain's mind, as he specified the boats to be filled with women and children first. Just over an hour after the collision, the first lifeboat left the sinking ship. To convince women to leave, officers tried assuring them it was only a precaution, that they would be back on board by daylight. First Officer Murdoch filled the starboard side, while Second Officer Charles Lightoller filled port. The officers interpreted the captain's women and children first order differently, with Murdoch putting men into the boats after all the women and children near the boat had entered. Lightoller, on the other hand, only allowed women and children to enter the boats and refused all men and boys over 14 years old. By 1:45 a.m, Titanic was down by about 5 degrees to the head, with the forecastle almost underwater. Panic began to rise through the passengers still on deck as they watched boat after boat launch. A few male passengers were physically removed from stern portside lifeboats 14 and 16, and Fifth Officer Harold Lowe warned other men not to approach by firing his pistol into the water below. The situation at the starboard bow was similar, with a group of men storming collapsible sea. Murdoch fired his pistol twice to warn them to move back from the lifeboat, and they were dragged out by other male passengers. A large group of third-class women and children took their place, along with a few seamen and the owner of White Star Line, Joseph Bruce Ismay. In the radio room, Titanic's Marconi operators were desperately communicating with nearby stations and ships. Throughout the night, senior operator Jack Phillips worked the 5-kilowatt Marconi wireless radio set to send out distress signals using both the old CQD and new SOS call codes. He alerted nearby ships to their position and status, and received updates of ship locations and estimated arrival times. Junior operator Harold Bride took these updates to Captain Smith and passed the captain's responses back to Phillips for transmission. RMS Carpathia radio operator Harold Cotton was off duty and about to go to bed when he decided to listen in to the nightly news from Cape Cod. Operators there mentioned they had ice warnings for Titanic, and Cotton decided to pass on the message. He was surprised when Phillips responded to his call with a CQD and gave Titanic's location. Cotton immediately took the message to Carpathia's captain, Arthur Rostron, who ordered all hands on deck and told Cotton to let Titanic know they were on their way. As the water reached the boat deck, the operators left their station, with Bride heading towards the port bow and Phillips to the starboard stern. Murdoch and Sixth Officer James Moody were standing on the starboard side, loading collapsible A into the davits. Lightoller was on the officers' quarters rooftop, removing collapsible B, when the bridge suddenly ducked under the surface. Waves washed over the decks, carrying people and the collapsible lifeboats into the ocean. The forward funnel collapsed at its base, with the resulting wave crushing the starboard bridge wing and those swimming in the water nearby. The stern rose out of the water, peaking at an angle of around 15 degrees. This placed stress on Titanic's keel, which buckled and twisted, tearing the ship in half and sending the waterlogged bow plummeting to the ocean floor. The tear wasn't clean, with decks failing to hold on in varying positions. The stern, now rapidly filling with water, bobbed on the surface for a few minutes before slipping under. RMS Titanic was carrying an estimated 2,208 passengers and crew, with only 712 surviving the disaster. Those who survived spent the night floating in darkness until RMS Carpathia arrived around 4 a.m. Captain Rostron had pushed the Cunard liner to break her speed record, but it wasn't enough. Titanic had sunk before Carpathia arrived, and they found 20 lifeboats at Titanic's location. Unfortunately, the exact number of victims is unknown, as there were many last-minute ticket purchases and cancellations, and that documentation was lost along with the ship. Of the 1,317 known passengers, over half were travelling third class or steerage as it was known. These passengers couldn't access the boat deck without entering second class or crew areas, meaning many were unaware how to get to the lifeboats and escape the sinking ship. First and second class passengers had no issues making their way to the boat deck, as staircases provided both classes direct access. Many expeditions to find and raise the wreck were proposed over the years, with the exact location of her wreck being unknown. Titanic's coordinates sent out in distress on the night of the accident had been incorrect. On the 1st of September 1985, a Canadian-French team were searching the area when Dr. Robert Ballard came across some small debris.
I think or whatever.
He followed the trail which led him to a
The
boiler
base
and
station
eventually the
thing,
wreck.
or the HTC
His discovery
Vive.
confirmed suspicions that Titanic
That's what
had in
this
fact
controller
split, and there was no hope of raising the wreck as a whole.
Weird. It's a weird.
Scientists and
Also,
historians have long
see,
argued for
there
and
we go.
against the recovery of artefacts from the site,
Also,
with
the
many
spotlight
agreeing the
just
site should be
went-
treated as a mass
It's
grave.
like
Although it's
shit.
predicted Titanic's wreck will disintegrate within the next 20 years, her story will intrigue generations to come.
There it is. Insane shit. Okay, that's the short one. How long? 10 minutes. Okay. I'm not sure I should do the. Okay, I'm gonna try sandbox. Okay, what one do? I think that's just like free roam or explore the thing. Stern. Same thing pretty much. Let's see a bit. I should do that. Had no purpose, but could try it. Let's see what's the long tour is about. Gets the same thing, but longer.
Welcome to the Titanic VR guided tour. We are currently 3.8 kilometres below the surface of the North Atlantic and 100 metres east of the bow. This submersible is on autopilot. However, you can adjust your spotlight using the far left lever. Please keep your arms and legs inside the vehicle at all times. I'll provide you with information about location.
It's pretty much the same information. Let's see what's this about. Some kind of story to it. I did play this a bit. So yeah, I'm back when I really didn't know what I'm doing. Go open the tickets.
Whoa, looks to be in good condition.
Let's get this cleaned up. This leather case is looking pretty sturdy, but it will need a good soaking in the desal tub to remove the salt. Then I can give it a gentle scrub with the nylon brush.
Why am I so close to the thing? Go back. Oh no, shit. I'm not sure I can pick that up. Come back to me. Control. Put it in. That comes in handy. Control that. Oh, yeah, should he? Scrubs.
Now it's clean, it needs to be soaked in PEG and fungicide to soften the leather and stop it from cracking. Alright, it's ready for freeze drying.
Freeze them there. Ugh, god damn it. Observe the items.
A bone hair comb. I'll need to wash the salt out quickly before it crystallizes and the bone starts to crumble. It's ready for drying in the acetone bath. Silver doesn't look great after being in the ocean. This tobacco tin is covered in silver sulfide. I'll have to gently wash this using a soft brush, making sure I don't scratch the surface underneath. It's come up great. This journal is pretty special. The pages seem to be a fabric paper blend. I think the desalination bath will leach out the salt. Then it can go into the PEG station before freeze drying.
Center point. Damn, I don't know why it does this. That's much better. Much better.
Special package. That's interesting.
Last item.
These banknotes are delicate and will need a good rinsing in the desalination bath. Then we can treat them in the fungicide to keep them clean before freeze drying them.
Here's our sponsor. We can tell her the news.
Hi, team. How are you both?
Hi, Gillian. We're doing great.
We've just finished cleaning the artifacts we found today. We managed to access Henderson's cabin and retrieve his briefcase.
Wonderful.
Inside we found his journal, a few personal items still in good condition. One interesting item is a receipt for a telegraph sent on the night of the sinking.
Oh, that is interesting. I didn't know William sent a message.
That's what we thought.
It's possible it wasn't sent, and that it's still in either the purser's office or the Marconi room. We're thinking our next dive should be to explore these rooms.
I know teams have searched the Marconi room before, but I didn't think the purser's office was accessible.
Yeah, up till now it's been off limits due to the size of ROVs, but ours is small enough to access it. We're hoping we might find the purser's record book, with the message listed.
As for the Marconi room, other dives have shown most of the furniture is deteriorated, but the telegraph canisters might have survived.
Sounds plausible. Let me know if you find anything. I'd love to see the message he sent. I've only the letters from Southampton.
I noticed something odd in his journal. On the 14th he mentions carrying some special package, but I'm sure he didn't have anything reported in the manifest. Do you have any idea what it could be?
Well, in In his last letter, he wrote about returning home with a present for my great-grandmother. I'll do a bit of research on my end. I can check over the manifests again to see if we missed anything.
Great, we'll let you know if we find anything tomorrow. I'm sending over photos of the items we found today.
Thanks, I really appreciate the regular updates. It's making writing much easier. We'll talk again soon.
Well, shall we call it a day?
Not quite. Gillian was kind enough to order in a stronger transmitter for our ROV. We'll need to fit it before the dive tomorrow. Otherwise, we won't be able to reach the purser's office.
I need to replace the transmitter in the
It's
ROV,
waiting for you
the
over
one on
there.
the table next to it. Thanks. I need to replace the transmitter in the ROV with the one on the table next to it. I need to lift the black hood to place the transmitter, then lift the bar up to put the sample container in the storage compartment.
That in some kind of container. I don't know what the fuck that is.
She's all ready to go for tomorrow.
Cool. I'll see you in the morning then.
Radio check, Wilson.
Coming in nice and clear, Dr. Lynch.
Great. First up is the purser's office on C deck, correct?
Correct. To access it, you'll need to head down through the hole where the forward grand staircase was. I'll mark it on your map.
The C deck is pretty compressed from what I've heard.
Yeah, the impact with the sea floor bent most of the supporting pillars, so they're struggling with the weight of the floors above.
With the rate of decay increasing, it won't be long before it all collapses. I'm glad we've had a chance to come down here and see it for ourselves, before all this becomes inaccessible.
Okay, you start talking now. I'll continue this next time. If you guys want to see more, just leave a like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell.
And she was sinking fast then. And all of a sudden she lifted up quickly, and you could hear everything crashing through her. Everything that was movable was going through her. And then she went down and seemed to come up again. So I thought, well, now I'm going to leave. And I was hanging on to a board. We had two boards, starboard and port.